Next item of business is a statement by Claire Hockey on mental health, transition and recovery. The Minister will take questions at the end of her statement. There will be no intervention or interruptions. I call Claire Hockey. Minister, 10 minutes, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The mental health impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic have brought new and significant challenges as we all continue to adapt to this unprecedented situation. Many of us will feel excitement and relief about the opportunity to move more freely outside our homes and to meet with our friends and loved ones again. However, that may also be accompanied by anxiety about the spread of infection. As we work towards transition and recovery, we need to ensure that the importance of looking after our mental health is just as widely understood as protecting our physical health. Since the beginning of the pandemic, this government has taken significant action to help support the mental health and well-being of the people of Scotland. We have invested a total of £6 million of additional funding to support the population's mental health. We launched the National Clear Your Head campaign in April. Through TV, radio and online resources, we've shared practical tips on how to look after your mental health and well-being. We've set and trained a number of initiatives to increase the capacity of existing services both now and in the future. For example, in March, I announced an additional £2.6 million of funding to increase the capacity of NHS 24's mental health telephone and online services. We've invested a further £1 million to roll out the Distress Brief Intervention Programme on a national basis. The programme provides an Ask Once, Get Help Fast intervention for people in distress. And we have made mental health support and advice available to parents and carers through Parent Club. And we have provided £105,000 to support Young Scot to develop enhanced digital content and resources on mental well-being during COVID-19. I can also announce today that we are providing nearly £43,000 to BEAT, the UK's eating disorder charity, to support their online and telephone support services. This funding will enable BEAT to reach 3,000 people with an eating disorder over the next 12 months. We recognise that those with autism, together with their parents and carers, may find change to routine particularly challenging. So we've provided an additional £200,000 for Scottish Autism and the National Autistic Society, enabling the expansion of their telephone helplines and online services. And we've also worked with the Scottish Commission for People with Learning Disabilities, which has provided excellent, easy-read versions of all key COVID-19 messages over this critical time, ensuring the advice is accessible to everyone. We're also indebted at this time to our amazing health and social care workforce. And as part of our efforts to care for those who care for us, we've launched the National Wellbeing Hub Promise, to provide a range of practical support both now and in the future. And working alongside boards and the Workforce Wellbeing Champions Network, we're keen to build upon the support the Hub provides. In particular, we plan to offer a national listening service to those across health and social care workforces, and we are also developing services for those who may need more specialist support. Presiding Officer, I would like to take this opportunity to recognise once again the contribution our workforce have given. They've gone above and beyond every single day. Your contribution has been truly extraordinary. We understand that COVID-19 will have long-lasting impacts well beyond the initial crisis response stage of COVID-19. And as such, we'll continue to build on the success of these actions to meet changing mental health needs. As we move through the phases of recovery, we anticipate that there will be ongoing challenges. There will be an increased need to provide different kinds of support for newly emerging mental health issues, and this will be on top of the typical demands on mental health services. This will require an intensive response, and it will need to be flexible and innovative. And this is why we've identified the remobilisation of mental health services as one of our top priorities. We're working directly with NHS boards to ensure people have access to the right services at the right time. Boards across Scotland must be able to meet demand in a way that is safe, effective, sustainable and quality focused. Mental health services have continued to be provided throughout the pandemic, albeit with adjustments in timescales for delivery and to accommodate COVID-19 restrictions. Urgent and emergency cases continue to be prioritised. We've worked closely with boards through the pandemic to ensure the integrity and quality of CAM services, and it's vital that mental health remains a visible priority, and particularly so for our younger citizens. We are undertaking specific work on the recovery of mental health services, including innovation in services and modelling future demand. And this detail will inform a full recovery plan covering all boards and all phases of recovery over the coming weeks and months. To ensure the board's mobilisation plans are robust, we are also working directly with mental health leads to build a baseline of service provision. And this includes detailed information about how services can be restarted safely. Where required, we will issue further guidance or directives to promote a consistent approach to remobilisation across Scotland. And during our engagement with boards, we have seen new evidence-led approaches across Scotland. The innovative use of technology has been a key feature, and one we will be keen to learn from as services are redesigned to meet the needs of patients. There are also plenty of fantastic examples of local practice that we want to see retained. For example, NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde has established mental health assessment centres to provide help and support for patients who are experiencing a mental health crisis, ensuring those patients receive a more tailored approach. This example of best practice has been taken up by boards across Scotland, and we now have 17 mental health assessment services operational across the country. Presiding Officer, although services are a crucial part of the picture, we know that our work must go wider and focus on the importance of mental well-being. The promotion of mental health at a population level will be central to the Scottish Government's long-term response. Human rights, equalities and the importance of reducing stigma and a focus on recovery will be foundational principles. Throughout the pandemic, we have worked closely with stakeholders to shape our approach and to determine our longer-term ambitions for mental health and wellbeing in Scotland. And this engagement has helped us to understand the current and emerging needs as a result of the pandemic. Some of these new challenges, such as supporting those who are shielding, some are existing issues that have been brought into an even sharper focus over the last few months. The relationship between poverty, inequality and mental health, for example, is at the forefront of our thinking. And key to these challenges will be the development of the new community mental health and wellbeing services to 5 to 25-year-olds. In March, we allocated £2 million of funding to local authorities to plan new supports for mental health and emotional wellbeing. In addition to this, we will make up to £15 million available each year for the delivery of these services. Despite the difficulties posed by the pandemic, I am confident local authorities and their partners can have these vital services in place this financial year. As well as concentrating on mental health services and the importance of well-being, we also want to ensure we have a robust support in place for those who experience distress, and the DBI programme is a prime example of this. There also needs to be fast, accurate and individualised signposting to sources of advice and support. Presiding Officer, in this changing landscape, our policy response will remain fluid and adaptable and will be led by the emerging evidence. The Scottish Government has commissioned the University of Glasgow, in collaboration with Samaritans and SAMH, to undertake a Scottish mental health and wellbeing tracker study. This study will track the mental health of participants for the next year and provide a Scottish-specific insight into the impact of the pandemic and lockdown restrictions on the population. We've also established the Mental Health Research Advisory Group, which includes academics and public health experts from across Scotland. The group, chaired by Professor Andrew Gumley, is helping to identify emerging research to guide our policy response. And in this next phase of our recovery of COVID-19, mental health will continue to be at the fore. This is why we are committed to ensuring that the good mental health and wellbeing of the people of Scotland is one of this government's top priorities. COVID-19 has illustrated more than ever why this matters so much. We remain determined that everyone is able to access safe, person-centred, equitable, efficient, timely and effective mental health support should they need it. And we will continue to engage with and inform Parliament as we develop our response. Presiding Officer, I doubt there is a single one of us here who hasn't thought about our own mental health at some point over the last few months. In many ways, the pandemic has destigmatised, showing us it's okay not to feel okay. There have been more people asking each other how they're doing, and these things really matter. The importance of good mental health is clear. As we move into the next phase of recovery, there will be new challenges for us all to face, but we will face them together. There is no right emotional response to the national trauma we faced. Some of us have adapted quickly and will continue to do so. Some of us will find it more of a struggle, and that's okay. The community spirit and the togetherness shown every day across Scotland has been amazing, and we must hold on to that. And the people of Scotland can be assured that mental health will continue to be an absolute priority for this government. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. I now have until about 4 o'clock for questions. I call Miles Briggs, to be followed by Monica Lennon. Mr Briggs, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And can I thank the Minister for advance sight of her statement? The latest waiting time figures show that fewer than 2/3 of children and young people accessing CAMHS services were treated within the Scottish Government's 18-week target, with the number of children waiting more than a year for mental health services increasing by almost 300 by the end of March. So it's clear that pre-crisis our services were not delivering for our young people. Can I ask the Minister if she'll agree to look at 3 key asks today and report back to Parliament? Firstly, establishing mental wellbeing support resources for parents over the summer holidays, a peer-to-peer wellbeing support network to be available in all secondary schools, hopefully when the schools return in August, and the development of new mental health training for teachers, not just mental health first aid.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Mr Briggs, for your question. I have said on many occasions that our position has been that long waits for mental health treatment are unacceptable, and it's encouraging to see that more people are being able to access psychological therapies compared to the same quarter last year in the statistics that he referenced. However, it is disappointing to see a drop in performance in this time. Our investments have contributed to a substantial increase in the CAMHS and psychological therapies workforce. However, we recognise that the impact on performance has been slower and less comprehensive than we would expect and require. And we're keen to build on some of the learning that we've had over this period and how recent developments, for example, the use of technology, can help boards address some of the long-standing issues around about access and, crucially, about quality of services. Mr Briggs had 3 specific asks, and if he'll indulge me, I will write back to him on those 3 specific asks. But it might also be helpful for him to know about some of the things that we have done that I haven't mentioned already. For example, Solihull Online, which looks at relationships and child development, and that covers the ages from antenatal period right through to age 19. The distress brief interventions, which are accessible now nationwide for anyone over the age of 16, and the support and advice that has been uploaded onto the Parent Club website, which provides support and advice for parents, carers and children around about aspects of mental health.
Thank you. I call Monica Lennon, followed by Emma Harper.
Thank you, and I thank the Minister for advance sight of her statement. I was pleased to see confirmation that there are now 17 emergency mental health assessment centres. That is very welcome, and I know that the Royal College of Emergency Medicine has recently endorsed the continued use of these in the future. As the NHS is remobilised, can the Minister guarantee that these changes will be made permanent? And finally, Presiding Officer, I didn't hear an awful lot in the statement directly about bereavement support, and through constituents who have been in touch with me who have suffered loss and trauma because of COVID-19, they've struggled to find access to groups for support. They know about the helplines, but I just wondered if perhaps after today the Minister and the Government can signpost people to support that does exist, and if there's not yet enough specific information and advice to people who have suffered a loss because of COVID-19, could that be rolled out for future? Thank you.
Minister.
I thank Monica Lennon for that question. I think she raises a really pertinent issue there about bereavement support. Anyone who has been bereaved over the period of this pandemic has had a bereavement like none that any of us have ever experienced, where the access to the rituals and the support that we would normally have been denied us. I send my sincere condolences to anyone who has been bereaved through COVID-19, as indeed has my own family. So I feel that I can say that with a degree of sincerity and empathy. We have invested in the services that Crew's bereavement can provide. I appreciate that at the moment it's very difficult for people to access group sessions, which can be extremely powerful in terms of supporting people through this. I would hope as we progress through the pandemic that we would be able to look at more innovative ways of providing group therapy in the NHS, but also within other third sector organisations. As regards the emergency mental health centres, yes, I'm absolutely delighted that we have so many of them up and running across the country. I think they provide a good service to people in mental health crisis, giving them direct access to mental health professionals and also redirecting them away from perhaps a less appropriate environment in an accident and emergency department in an acute hospital. I certainly will be working with boards to look at how they plan to continue those services and would be encouraging them to do so. And we will be looking at all of the innovative services that have been developed right across mental health, and there are quite a range of them, to look at the value of them, the quality that they're able to provide to the patients who are using them, to the outcomes from those services as well, whether they're providing a quality service and indeed an evidence-based service, and encouraging health boards to continue with those innovations.
Thank you. Before I call Emma Harp, can I remind members to press the request to speak buttons if they want to ask a question. Can I have succinct questions, please? And I know this is a very important and sensitive issue, but could I have succinct answers too, please, Minister? I'm trying to get everybody in. I call Emma Harp, followed by Brian Whittle.
Can I ask the Minister if she can provide an update on what mental health services have been paused or stopped altogether during COVID-19, such as the CAMHS physical attendance in Dumfries and Galloway, and can she provide an outline on what impact that has had on the people who need the services?
Minister, please.
So mental health services have continued to be provided throughout the pandemic, albeit with adjustments to accommodate COVID-19 restrictions and timescales for delivery. As I said earlier, urgent and emergency cases continue to be prioritised. That said, certain aspects of service delivery have necessarily been paused over the period due to restrictions imposed by COVID-19 related limitations such as physical distancing. And these include, for example, group work, day and respite services, assessment and review for dementia, autistic spectrum disorder, neurodevelopmental and assessments and medication reviews for ADHD, and some inpatient detox services. Where this has happened, we've been assured by boards that efforts are being made to support patients and their families by other means, for example, through telephone contact or domiciliary visits, where that's essential. And boards are also working with each other and with the Scottish Government to find safe and effective ways to deliver group interventions, as I referenced in my answer to Monica Lennon, and neurological assessments remotely.
Thank you. Brian Whittle, followed by Claire Adams.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. I know the Minister is aware of the huge contribution the third sector makes to tackling mental health, whether that's specific organisations with mental health interventions or others just offering opportunities to be included. You will know that many are struggling in the current crisis, and if they disappear, that burden will fall on an NHS service already under extreme pressure. So can I ask what work the Minister is doing in conjunction with the Communities Cabinet Secretary to ensure that the third sector is still there when we need it most?
Minister, please.
So over the course of this pandemic, and indeed previously, we have recognised the work that the third sector does. Mental health is much more than an NHS response. And we value the work that they do for our communities across Scotland. We have invested in various third sector organisations across the pandemic period and before, for example in perinatal mental health services, in Young Scot, in looking at the effect of lockdown on our children and young people, and across, as I referenced earlier, cruise bereavement care. Just so that the member is aware, the Mental Health Delivery Board has continued to meet during the pandemic, and the third sector plays a key role within that. So their voices are certainly very much at the table in terms of planning mental health services once we come out of this pandemic, and indeed for the rest of the time during that pandemic.
I have 10 minutes and 10 people want to ask questions, so maybe I have to get a bit swifter at this. Claire Adamson, followed by Anna Starvar, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I ask the Minister how The Scottish Government will ensure parents and carers are made aware of mental health support available for children, and what specific mental health provision will be made available for those with additional support needs.
Minister.
So the Scottish Government is working with a range of partners to support children and families to mitigate the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on their mental health. We've made support and advice around mental health for parents, carers and their children available on the Parent Club website, and this includes free access to Solihull Online, which is a resource which helps parents and carers to better understand their child's emotional development and supports the development of healthy relationships. Schools remain a key link for parents and carers in supporting the mental health and well-being of children and young people, including those with additional support needs, and they'll continue to be available to discuss any concerns that their child's mental health they have about their child's mental health with guidance teachers or staff or senior management. And Education Scotland and the National Autism Implementation Team have been working together with a range of stakeholders to consider how teachers and teaching staff can be supported in their role in supporting autistic learners back to school.
Anna Sarwar, followed by Alison Johnson.
There will come a time when we debate how prepared we were for this pandemic, but we must now prepare for the pandemic we know is coming. Isolation, shielding, losing loved ones, financial insecurity, pressures of homeschooling and the emotional toll of it all has impacted on mental health, with 83% of young people saying their mental health has got worse and other research showing stark increases in adults. There won't be any excuses. Will we be ready for the mental health pandemic?
Minister. Thank Mrs Sabar for that question. We certainly have been working very closely with NHS boards and others, as I referenced in the Mental Health Delivery Board, to ensure that we monitor the impact of COVID-19 on demand and on capacity. And in that respect, we wrote to NHS boards on the 14th of May, highlighting mental health as a clinical priority and asking them to set out their plans for reinstating services and to work with partners to estimate the anticipated rise in mental health needs in their population and what their response would be. And I will continue to work with boards and others to ensure that the people of Scotland get the services that they require post-pandemic.
Alison Johnson, followed by Alec Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you. The delivery of maternity services have necessarily been altered, for example, restrictions on those attending scans and appointments, and there's an increased risk of social isolation for women beginning motherhood during lockdown. So can the Minister confirm what actions are being taken with regard to the mental well-being of pregnant women and new mothers and to prevent any upsurge in postnatal depression? Thank you.
Minister.
So Alison Johnson may remember that in August last year we invested £225,000 in third sector organisations to help support families and mums in the postnatal period. And we extended that funding to August 2020 until the commencement of the National Perinatal and Infant Mental Health Fund comes online. And these organisations are actively offering help and support to women and their families during COVID-19. And of course, we need to remember that there are health visitors and GPs who are also there as good sources of advice and support for pregnant women and new mums if they feel that they're struggling. Up-to-date information can be found on the NHS Inform Ready Steady Baby, Parent Club and Clear Your Head sites. And of course, it would be remiss of me not to mention the excellent care that midwives provide to women, not only physical care but also psychological care throughout their pregnancy.
Alec Cole-Hamilton, followed by James Dornan.
Earlier this month, we learned the extent of the waits for child and adolescent mental health services in the year up to the start of lockdown. The official statistics showed that record 1,253 children waiting over a year for treatment. We now know how bad the situation was at the outset of the crisis, but experts are warning of a fresh avalanche of need for these services. We also know how damaging grief, removal of freedom, loss of contact and disruption can be. So can I ask the Minister, what is the Scottish Government's plan for the recovery of CAMHS and that can meet existing and heightened demand, and how is it going to differ from the existing strategy? Because 3 years into that, we had more children waiting over a year than ever before.
Point made, Minister.
So thank Ms Cole-Hamilton for that question. I think as I've said in answers, in answers to other members, as we move through the phases of recovery, We do anticipate increased demand for mental health support, and that's why key priority for the recovery process and for health boards in the remobilisation of services. Over the coming weeks and months, we will be working directly with NHS boards to develop a recovery plan for mental health services, covering all boards and all phases of recovery, and we'll continue to work with them thereafter to monitor their plans and the impact of COVID-19 on the demand for NHS services.
James Dornan, followed by Annie Wells.
Minister mentioned the National Wellbeing Unit earlier in her speech. I wonder if you could provide an update on the use of the unit and how she sees it going forward.
I don't think you heard that. Could you repeat that, Mr Dornan? Sorry, it's the sound value.
Yeah, it's happily. The Minister mentioned the National Wellbeing Unit in her speech earlier on. I wonder if you could provide an update on the use of the unit and also how she sees it going forward.
We heard that one. Minister.
Thank you. So we've developed the National Wellbeing Service for our health and social care staff, third sector staff and for unpaid carers. And it's a resource to help provide them with the best and most up-to-date information in terms of supporting their own mental health and well-being. I have to say that since it was launched last month, it has been overwhelmingly well received. The feedback from the people who have used the service has been very encouraging. It's a service that will develop as we go forward and we have more evidence-based information and support for our health, social care and third sector staff. On the most recent statistics that I saw, because we're monitoring use of it, it is a resource that is being used from staff and their families right across the country and from right across NHS social care and the third sector.
Annie Wills.
Thank you. Will there be any specific services designed for people, especially the elderly, who are required to continue shielding or self-isolate themselves?
Minister. So I think Annie Wells raises a really important point there. We have asked people to do something quite extraordinary, to lock themselves away essentially from their friends, from their families, to stop going out, to stop accessing their own usual support services, and to do that at a time when they're no doubt overwhelmed and worried about the pandemic. So the letter that the Chief Medical Officer issued in March to people shielding provided advice on what they could do to keep themselves mentally active and to look after their mental well-being while shielding, and it also signposted people to additional advice and support from NHS 24, NHS Inform, I beg your pardon, and the Breathing Space websites. The Clear Your Head campaign has practical tips for people in terms of what they can do to make themselves feel better while they continue to stay at home. And of course there is also a support helpline for people who are shielding.
And Fulton McGregor, very, very briefly, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I ask the Minister if she can provide an update on the distress brief interventions? Can she outline what the rollout of that programme is, including how it has been delivered and what the impact has been? Thanks.
Very briefly, Minister.
So the expansion of the programme went live for callers across Scotland on the 8th of June. And the key element to this expansion is that anyone who phones NHS 24 Mental Health Hub from anywhere in Scotland can be referred to the DBI programme for further support and where it's assessed as possible. And the expansion is a testimony to the dedication and hard work and cross-sectoral cooperation in all the organisations involved in the DBI programme.
Thank you very much, and that concludes questions on the statement. Next item of business is consideration of business motion 22065 in the name of Graham Day on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau, setting out a timetable for the stage 3 consideration of the Animals and Wildlife Penalties, Protections and Power Scotland Bill. Ask any member who wishes to speak against the motion to press the request to speak button. I call on Liz Smith to move the motion. Ms Smith, please.
Moved.
No member is asked to speak against the motion. Therefore, the question is that motion S5M 22065 be agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. The motion is therefore agreed. Be a short pause before we move on to the next item of business.